Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Elmhurst City Hall. Today is Monday, August 3rd, 2009, and this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Elmhurst City Council. In the absence of Mayor DeCiani, it is my responsibility as City Clerk to call the meeting to order. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we move on to our next agenda item, I need to call the roll to establish a quorum. Gutenkopf. Here. Pezza. Here. Shea. Here. Leader. Here. Rose. Here. Graham. Here. Hipskin. Absent. York. Here. Nybo. Here. Healy. Here. Morley. Here. Kennedy. Here. Mulliner. Absent. Wagner. Here. 12 present, 2 absent. So we do have a quorum. So before we move on to the next agenda item, I'd like to have a motion to appoint an alderman to preside as mayor pro tem for tonight's meeting. Alderman Wagner.
I move to have Susan Rose mayor pro tem for tonight's meeting.
Do I have a second for that? Alderman Nybo. All those we'll do a voice vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. That motion carries. And Alderman Rose, I hand the gavel over to you. Or Mayor Pro Tem Rose.
Thank you very much. The second item on our agenda is the receipt of written communications and petitions from the public. Is there anyone who has any written communication or a petition they would like to present to the City Council at this point? None? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to public forum. The third item of our agenda is public forum. This is a time period where anyone in the chambers who has a question or a comment they want to make on any business having to do with the City Council or with the city can speak to the council. I would request several things. One is that you wait to be recognized by the chair before you approach one of the 2 microphones. After you do approach one of the microphones, would you please state your name, spell your name, your last name if necessary, and give your home address. You will have approximately 3 minutes for any comments, so we hope if there's anyone who has any comments, we'd be happy to entertain them at this point. Sir.
Gilbert Fisher, Fischer, 586 North Van Auken in Elmhurst, Illinois. What we have here is a failure to communicate on taxes. You people are spending money like water down a sewer, and the people, the citizens of Elmhurst, cannot afford it. Within 1 block of my house, there are 4 empty houses, 2 like my house and 2 of the new big ones. You're not making any money off of them. I've seen in the newspaper that Fannie Mae gave a couple of houses away to people for $0. These people are not having any money to give you any money on your sales tax or your municipal taxes that you have on everybody. The man across the street from me lost his job 3 months ago. Of course, his wife works. The man to the south of me had his time cut. 1 week he worked 16 hours, then another week he worked 23 hours. People are leaving Elmhurst like crazy because they can't afford it, and you want more money for the things that you think are important. If you have 1,000 people paying taxes and you lose 100 people, you request the other 900 people to pay 10% more. What happens if you lose 50 more people? You want the people that are left to pay 25% more? If you want people to stay in Elmhurst, and you want Elmhurst to be a good city without having Section 8 people move in and take over, you're going to have to think about the consequences of all these taxes that you have on the people. If you see about all the crime that's going on in our nice little city, we need right now, I've talked to the police about this and they say no, 5 more police officers and 5 more cruisers 24 hours a day on our roads to keep us safe. You have to think about what you're doing with the money you're getting from us and what you can do to keep the people in Elmhurst. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who has any comments? Ma'am?
Good evening. Councilwoman Rose and members of the City Council, my name is Val Stewart. I'm president of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation. I live at 135 South York, number 508. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you tonight about the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation. As you know, the foundation was formed almost 2 years ago by a merger of the Elmhurst Historical Commission and the Elmhurst Historical Museum Foundation. Our board is made up of 20 Elmhurst citizens who work to forward the foundation's mission to stimulate broad-based support for local history and the Elmhurst Historical Museum through advocacy, education, and fundraising. If I may, I'd like to introduce the members of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation Board who are with us tonight. Jackie Haddad, Kathy Jordan, Scott Smith, and Kathy Siegert. I'm here to ask for your yes vote on the completion of the final phase of the restoration of the 164-year-old Churchville one-room schoolhouse listed on the National Register of Historic Places and one of only a few historic schoolhouses in the region still on its original site. As an aside, and just to put this building into historical context, about the same time the schoolhouse was built, Abraham Lincoln was just elected to Congress and still had 5 years before he was elected president. A recent visit to the schoolhouse, which is nearly completed, with the museum staff, brought back memories of the wonderful education program that was offered there from the late 60s to the early 90s. This program brought thousands of second and third graders to spend the day attending school as if it were 1900. What better way to teach children the history of their community than by having them live the experience? The program was a hit with children, teachers, and parents on so many levels. Our mission now at the Foundation is to see this program return for children and adults from any school group or group in Elmhurst, free of charge. And for those from any school or group from the surrounding region, in return for a small visitor's fee. When the schoolhouse is open to the public next spring, it will open the doors to thousands of children from across the Chicago metropolitan area who will have that same living history experience. Our plans also call for the schoolhouse to be used for adult and family programs throughout the year, as well as for adult group rentals. To show our commitment towards this project's completion, I am here to advise that although we have not had time to have a formal meeting, I do have consensus from our board. The consensus is overwhelming in favor of offering financial support for this project as stipulated in the paperwork that you have before you. To further our fundraising efforts and to support the restoration of the schoolhouse and the historical museum initiatives, our semi-annual fundraising event, this year entitled Rockin' the Schoolhouse, will take place on Saturday, November 7th at Drury Lane with great food and live classic rock and roll. We invite all of you to attend to celebrate the opening of this invaluable landmark and important piece of local history. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Darlene Heslop, and I live at 200 North Michigan Avenue, number 227 in Elmhurst. There are 9 members of this council that voted for the Arco-Murray deal several months ago. It was previously mentioned by Alderman Nybo that the only person that labeled the deal to be no bid and hence gave his vote against was George Sapaniak. My question, Why all of the discussion now on the no-bid part of this deal, in particular by Alderman Bram and Gutenkopf? You both voted yes to the deal. The Arco-Murray contract is unique in that the land acquisition would never have taken place otherwise. Part of the deal involved an agreement to utilize the expertise of Arco-Murray. Therefore, going out to bid for the service was not possible. The fact that the city staff was able to negotiate more favorable terms is a credit to their diligence and financial acumen. This needs to be fully explained and understood by the public as to avoid confusion. It is important for the city that this project get done. The new garage will alleviate the lack of downtown customer parking, as well as provide additional revenues with the fees collected by commuters paying for monthly passes and daily parking. Alderman Pezza often states that she promised her constituents during her campaign that she would never support no-bid contracts, and so therefore could not vote for the Arco-Murray initiative. Yet, along with 8 others, she was ready to vote yes to the hiring of a new city attorney even before the gavel fell on the first ever meeting of a brand new council with a new and inexperienced mayor at the helm. There have been residents that have voiced their opinions in this very room regarding backdoor dealing and lack of transparency with regards to the First Street parking garage, yet seem unaware that the mayor did just that with almost the full support of this council in the hiring of the new city attorney. It appears that Mr. Storino's deal was essentially no bid as well. I therefore ask to those that are the most vocal concerning no bid, in particular Alderman Bram, Gutenkopf, and Pezza, why now with the Arco-Murray and not previously with the city attorney? I believe it would have been more than possible to secure a new attorney with bidding as opposed to this particular deal, which never would have been possible any other way than how it was structured. And I'd also like to say to Chief Neubauer that if we install red light cameras, they should be installed for safety purposes and not to merely generate revenue, as it defeats the purpose of those types of cameras. I got dinked in Villa Park and it was a nightmare. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else have anything to say? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Bob Dembski. I live at 257 Walnut Street. I'm here, well, first of all, I agree with what the first gentleman said. I think the city should get back to the basics of a lot of things in this town. I think we're getting over our heads. I was hoping once Mayor Marcucci was gone, things would change a little bit, but in my opinion, it don't seem like it's changing that much. The other thing, I've been in construction over 30 years, and I'll tell you what, I don't care if it's removing a brick, if it's sweeping a sidewalk, if it's cleaning this carpet, you get bids from the top all the way down. You do not let anyone come in and give you a price, because believe me, I'm in the construction, and when they know that they're going in when they don't have to put a bid in and that stuff, it's going to be higher. Maybe he did come in and get a good price. You know, everyone isn't dishonest. Maybe it is fair. But for this council not to get bids on everything we do to save the taxpayers' money, especially the way the economy is and people losing their jobs and everything and out of work, we got to try to save every penny we can. And to do anything, I don't care what it is, that garage to me, I couldn't believe it. When I listened to it on the TV, I just couldn't believe. I understand that the subs were going to get bids on the subs, but you got to get everyone. You can hire contractors where they'll give you bids for the whole job, and then they're going to hire their own project manager to manage a joint, and supposing the city's supposed to have our engineers and inspectors to go see the work that they're doing. That's what we're paying these people to do, to watch over, to make sure these jobs are getting done. I mean, it's just not to get a bid on anything. I know this lady was mentioning a few things with the attorney here and that, but you got to have everything. You just can't just go give someone a job, say, here, we're going to give you this job, and not get bids. If it's your money at your house and you want to do that, that's fine. But when you're dealing with taxpayers' money in this time, you have to give bids. I mean, it's just, for not getting bids, that's wrong. I mean, and I don't know, maybe you would do stuff at your house, you just hire anyone to come and do it, and he did it and not get bids and get the same job done for a lower price and save us money that we need in this town to do things. Our streets are terrible. The one other thing I want to say about our streets, I know when they build new houses, they charge to redo the street, the sewer and water, and I believe Elmhurst comes and refills it. But you people got to remember, you got cement trucks coming down these streets. You got semis coming down with loads of stuff. These streets aren't designed to hold all that load of stuff, and they're coming in and out, in and out. That street gets ruined, too, for building all these new houses. I know Elmhurst, they want to try to make it bigger and better and everything like that. I can understand that. But I think Elmhurst, the council has to get back to the basics of things and go from the basics. We got this Hahn Street over here that's sitting, how much money is that costing us? Millions, just sitting there doing nothing. I was against that in the beginning, too. I knew that was going to be a thing, and who knows whatever's going to happen there. So I just hope you people realize when you are spending our taxpayers' money, mine and all these people here, that this money is our money, our town's money, your town money, and we got to get the best price for whatever we do, because you just got to get bids. You cannot do it without getting bids on things. It's just not the way things are done these days. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who would like to take a few minutes here in the public forum? No? No one else? Seeing no one else, I will close this section of the meeting, the public forum section. I want to thank everyone who came out and spoke. Really appreciate your words and comments, and we want to make sure you understand we take all of it to heart. The next item of business we have is the consent agenda, and I need a motion to accept the contents of the consent agenda. Alderman York, Alderman Bram seconds. Does anyone have any items from the consent agenda that they would like pulled? Alderman Pezza.
C and D.
Item C and item D. Anyone else? Alderman Bram.
L and N.
L and M.
N as in Nancy.
N as in Nancy. L and N. Anyone else? Alderman Morley?
Item A.
Item A. Any other items? Righty. Seeing as there are no other items, I would need a motion then to accept the contents of the consent agenda minus items A, C, D, L, and N as in Nancy. All in favor signify, do you have an item you want to take off?
No.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The consent agenda then passes, the items passed. I now need a motion to approve the contents of the consent agenda minus items A, C, D, L, and N. Alderman Bram, Alderman Pezza, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously as it must. We will now take these items in order, and I apologize I did not put who one of them, but I might be able to figure this out. Item A, which is the minutes of the regular meeting held on Monday, July 20th. That was Mr. Morley. We don't have to have that read, Mr. Morley. Do you have some questions on this in particular?
Yes, I only got the even pages.
Hold on just a moment. City Clerk,
Odd pages.
just a moment.
Lay it on me.
City Clerk, do you need to read a piece of this?
Wait a minute, they're saying only odd pages.
I only
How
got-
many of you?
Yes.
Oh. I'm missing all of the even pages.
Oh. Is that? Yes. Oh, my goodness.
Thank you, Alderman Morley.
I approve the odd pages.
Okay, well, I'll make sure you have the even pages.
Do we put it on the next agenda?
Yeah, that will be on the next agenda. It's already pulled off of this
Yes.
one, so it will not be approved. Very good. Thank you, Alderman Morley. Item C, accounts payable from July 31st. That was Alderman Pezza.
Yes, thank you.
Do you have a question on that?
Just a quick, probably for our city attorney. I do try to go through the accounts payable every Thursday when we receive it, in light of the concerns of the constituents. I have the same concerns, looking for ways to save a couple pennies here and there if we can. And I just had a quick question regarding one of the payments. It seemed unusual, and I'm hoping it won't be a practice. It was to Van Slyke Enterprises for $6608.33.
And what page is that, Alderman Pezza?
Oh, gosh.
What line?
I just made a copy of the actual.
Page 21.
And what
Okay,
line
thanks.
is that?
555.
It's like,
Just a quick question. I noticed, which seemed unusual and kind of out of the ordinary, I was just wondering, it was prepaid or hand-issued, and in light of that, I had asked for a copy of the invoice, which I did receive this afternoon, but it seems as if it were paid prior to this passing this evening, so I just would like some clarification as to that
I might be able to
process.
clarify you. My understanding is the checks are cut, but they are not sent. Is that true? The city manager was here. I'll ask.
It says it was hand-issued in the information I received, so I was just curious.
The check probably was hand-issued, but usually, normal practice, and maybe the city treasurer can enlighten us on this, is that those checks are all cut, but they are not sent until this is approved. They could be written. Is that correct?
This one in particular was dated July 23rd. It was issued prior.
It was issued July 23rd, correct?
It was issued or paid? You said paid? It was paid prior to our approval this evening?
And we are sure that that is the case?
Okay. I just spotted that, and I was just concerned as to,
Yeah.
I don't think that's common practice.
It is not common practice, and we will give a note to the city manager and ask him to answer that question, because that is not common practice. It's not uncommon for a check to be written, but simply not sent based on approval. So we would, we'll check and see if that is the case. Treasurer Dyer.
There's another one on page 13.
Which one is that?
Page 11. Page 7. Page 9, I mean.
Page 9, 11, and 13.
Page 5. Page 6.
So there were several.
Page 13, can you detail which ones these were?
They're the ones that are listed in the far right-hand column of the pages.
Oh, the hand-issued amounts. Right. Right.
Page 6.
We will ask the city manager for clarification of that. It was always my understanding that the hand-issued ones, that did not necessarily mean, you would know this better than I, Treasurer Dyer, whether those actually were then distributed. That means that they were as well.
Yes.
We will then ask the city manager for some further explanation of that as a practice. There may have been some reason why those were. Generally, that is not our practice to do that. That is generally not.
Thank you.
I would suggest, unless the council wishes to do otherwise, that the accounts receivable be approved, and that we have just an explanation from the city manager around that, since standard practice is that they are not approved before this. So unless the council has some other. Alderman Wagner?
Question. I'd just like a little bit more clarification on the title of the report, check date August 6th, 2009. Today's August 3rd. Is it possible that the check is maybe prepared and not given out?
I'm sorry, say it again, please.
That's my.
The report is as of July 31st, 2009 to August 6th, 2009. And I'm wondering if maybe some of those checks that are written on the right-hand side of the report are in fact sitting somewhere being available but need to be approved from a council standpoint and then paid.
Alderman Wagner said it much better than I did. That was my understanding of what common practice is. So
That's a question.
that's usually the practice, is what it is. We will determine that. We will ask the city manager to let us know that. But that usually is, and actually that would be informative, I think, for all the new aldermen to understand that if this is surely not the only time this will come. But that is usually what we have seen then. So I would suggest we go ahead and approve this unless otherwise, and then we will get a report from the city manager around that as a practice. Is that okay?
Thank you, yes.
City Attorney, do we need a vote?
Motion is second and a roll call vote.
All right, we need a motion to approve. Alderman Morley moves, Alderman Gutenkopf seconds. Ask the clerk to read the roll.
Morley.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Shay. Aye. Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Pipskin, absent. York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner, absent. Wagner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
Thank you, Clerk Spencer. I would ask, in the absence of City Manager Borchert, that Chief Neubauer just communicate to the City Manager that council would just like some, it would be instructive, some explanation about what the practice is around hand-issued checks. Thank you. Item D, appointment to the Zoning and Planning Commission. I would ask the clerk to read that recommendation. Is there?
Okay. With your advice and consent, I will appoint Mr. Brendan J. Hill to the Zoning and Planning Commission for a term to expire on February 20th, 2014. He will be replacing Mr. Jeff T. Ernst, whose term expired on February 20th, 2009. Respectfully submitted, Peter P. DeCiani III, Mayor.
Alderman Pezza, you pulled this as well?
Thank you. I just wanted to take a quick moment as we welcome the new commissioner. Just a quick minute to say thank you to Mr. Ernst in his outgoing position. I know he has served for the past 8 years, and he was very dedicated to that commission. I know he worked hard. He always was a very respectful listener and thoughtful decision maker. I myself have attended many of those commission meetings and hearings, and I just understand and appreciate, since I've been sitting up here, I have a greater appreciation for service, and I want to make sure he was thanked for his 8 years and wish him well while welcoming the new appointment. So.
Thank you, Alderman Pezza. Anyone who's ever attended the Zoning and Planning Commission meetings understands that all of those people who serve there give a tremendous amount of time and really deserve thank you. So that I appreciate you doing that. Do we need a vote on this, Attorney?
A motion to concur in a second, and then a voice vote.
Motion to concur. Alderman Wagner, second. Alderman Healy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Thank you. Item L, that was pulled by Alderman Graham.
Yes, thank you.
We would ask the clerk to read the recommendation of item L, report on Melrose Avenue.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Safety Committee that the appropriate ordinance be drafted and adopted by the City Council to restrict parking on the north side of Melrose Avenue from North Avenue to Willow Road during drop-off and pickup periods at Field School. Respectfully submitted, Public Works and Safety Committee, signed by Patrick Wagner, Chairman, Chris Nybo, Vice Chairman, and Paula Pezza.
Thank you. It was Public Affairs and Safety. But thanks for giving the Public Works Committee the credit for that one.
Oh, sorry about that.
With that said...
No, we don't need a... Do we need a motion yet? He just has a question on it.
Oh.
It probably would be appropriate to move it, and then second, and then discussion.
Alderman Graham. Do you want to move acceptance of the
I'll
report?
move to accept the report as read.
We have a second. Alderman Nybo? Discussion.
Thank you. I just wanted to make mention of two things. One, I want to thank the committee, the Public Affairs Committee, for their due diligence on this. Alderman Rose and myself made actually the same request for both item L and item N, which is in the same neighborhood. I believe that it's a safety issue, and I'm really glad to see that with these upcoming parking changes, if this moves forward, that will be corrected. The actual main reason why I pulled this is to make a request to make a motion to amend the report to reflect that Alderman Rose, as well as myself, were the two that issued this request. So if I could amend the first sentence to reflect to discuss a request from Alderman Rose and Alderman Bram to prohibit parking, et cetera, et cetera.
Do we need a motion for that amendment? So moved. Alderman Nybo, is there a second for that? Alderman Gutenkopf. All those in favor of the amendments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay? All right, the amendment passes. There will, any further discussion on the report itself? I want to pass the gavel for a moment to Alderman Wagner so I can speak on this, not the chair. I do want to compliment the committee. This really is just a hotbed of problems in that little area around Field School, and for a long time, so there's no problem. So I thank you for doing that. This is a third ward issue, and we appreciate your work. Thank you. Get back. All right, so now we need a vote on that motion. Is that correct?
Yeah, the voice vote.
We'll have a voice vote.
The ordinance is going to follow.
Okay. All those in favor of the recommendation of the report on Melrose Avenue signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That report passes. Item N, we need a motion to put that into play. Alderman Braham, Alderman Wagner seconds. Any discussion on item N? Alderman Braham.
The only discussion, and I left this out, I do not want to take credit for the work that I did not do. Alderman Rose is the one who actually identified the error in the report, so I want to give credit where credit is due. And other than that, all the comments I reiterate because it is the same area, and I think this will improve the neighborhood. So thank you.
So, do you want, we need the amendment. You want to make a motion on the amendment?
Oh, yeah. Instead of saying ditto, I guess we actually have to make a motion to amend. I would like to make the same motion for this area, if I can make a motion to amend the report to state, to discuss a request from Alderman Rose and Alderman Braham to prohibit parking on both sides of Howard Avenue, et cetera.
Is there a second to that amendment? Alderman Wagner, any discussion on that amendment? Alderman Morley.
I'm not sure I understood that. What was the amendment? All right. Got it.
Any discussion? No, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Any abstentions? All right, that amendment passes. Now, the main motion of the report on Howard Avenue. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the recommendation of the report signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Any abstentions? That motion passes. We have now completed the consent agenda, except I was advised by the city attorney before we go of the consent agenda, we actually need a roll call vote on the contents of the consent agenda. Do we need a motion for that? We have the motion.
We had a motion in a second. I just think we need to call the roll and the balance of the items in the consent.
So instead of a voice vote, we need a roll call vote. I'll ask the city clerk to call the roll on the
Okay.
consent agenda, acceptance
Right.
of all the items minus, again, items A, C, D, L, and N.
As soon as I find my form, so many amendments here, I kind of got lost. 'Cause I had the sheet. I apologize for the delay. Somehow I got very disorganized. Consent agenda. Can't find the sheet. Oh, here it is. Apologize for the delay. Okay, call the roll. It was Braham,
Aye.
Pezza,
Aye.
Gutenkopf,
Aye.
Shea. Aye. Leader,
Aye.
Rose,
Aye.
Hipskin, absent, York,
Aye.
Nybo,
Aye.
Healy,
Aye.
Morley,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Mulliner, absent, Wagner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
Thank you very much. We now move on to item 5, committee reports. We have one report from Public Works and Buildings. I would ask the clerk to read the recommendation of the report.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the bid from McHugh Construction for the interior renovations washroom facilities, including construction management services, in the amount of $417,019 be accepted. Respectfully submitted, Public Works and Buildings Committee, Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Michael Bram, Vice Chairman, Pat Shea, and unsigned by Chris Healy.
I would look to Chairman Kennedy for a motion. Move. Second, Alderman Bram. Chairman Kennedy.
Okay. As we started on the new council, this was a project that came up very quickly in talking about the one-room schoolhouse. We, I think one of our first meetings went out and looked at the site, saw the improvements that were made to the building. The foundation had been redone. There was a number of improvements to the site. And what Brian Burhager had done is to give us a little bit of the history of the site, of the building, and what the project going forward would entail. As we've come to learn, it's a project cost of $417,000, and as I looked at it initially, I questioned whether or not this was the best use of our money, given the financial situation that we're in as a city and as a country overall. As we learned about it, we have a number of things that have happened on the positive side from a financial standpoint. We have grants that have come in to the tune of $198,000 to begin with. There was an Illinois First grant of $108,000, and then two grants, one of $40,000 and one of $50,000 to add up to $90,000 again, roll that up to $198,000. So at first look, you've got about half the project taken care of. After that, we received word from State Senator Dennis Reboletti, a state representative, excuse me, that as part of the capital bill, another $100,000 was coming our way, so that brings it up to $298,000. So we're looking at a bogey there of about $119,000. Still a good chunk of money, no doubt about it. We recently learned that the city of Elmhurst was getting additional money for the motor fuel tax, and so what Mayor DeCiani was asking is that as this is basically found money in our respect, and we're at this point with those monies, about 10% of the project left to go, we would take $100,000 from the motor fuel tax, add into the commitment that has been made by the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation of the remainder of the project, and basically we have a situation where the one-room schoolhouse will be complete and it won't make any impact on the general fund as it stands today. So given that situation, again, I was initially, some trepidation as to whether or not we would do this. I think with the funding that has come forth with the grants and the commitment by the Heritage Foundation, I think this is something that we've got the light at the end of the tunnel. We should go ahead and finish the project and move forward.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the committee have any other comments they wanted to make on this?
Sure.
Alderman Bram?
Thank you. This is a tough one for me. We started the one-room schoolhouse, I don't even know how many years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago by now. A lot of money has been invested in the one-room schoolhouse. 5? 10? Okay, I'm hearing from the audience 10. I assume that's not a bid out there. With that being said, it has been a long time coming. It was better times when we really started this project. I did sign the report. I did ask for additional information that is provided in the report to make sure that we did understand the bids that were done, going back to the whole bid or no bid scenario, because that is crucial to make sure that we are getting the best price for the work that gets done. The rationale behind signing the report really is this isn't a necessity for the city of Elmhurst residents. It's really not. It is what I would call a nice to have. So being bad economic times, I was really, the start of the conversation was not willing to move forward. By the end of the conversation, I am willing to move forward because I don't want to see the money that we've invested in this facility essentially to go to waste. I don't want to see the facility to degrade and postpone the final renovations that we need and then have to do more renovations once the economy turns around. I think that we did get the best deal possible for the remaining work. I'm excited for us to finally reach, as Alderman Kennedy stated, the end of the tunnel, and really move forward with this. The one thing I do want to emphasize, per our discussions in committee, was some of the grant money that was spoken about. It was initially targeted to the Life Education Center, which is another property that is used by the Historical Museum. Those monies have been reallocated, and I want to stress that, reallocated to the one-room schoolhouse. So if there are further improvements needed for the Life Education Center, those monies are no longer there because it was deemed by the Historical Museum staff that this is more of a need than for the Life Education Center. I am very happy to see additional grants because that does pretty much, I don't want to say totally remove the burden of the taxpayers, but removes most of the burden of the taxpayers for this facility. So with that said, I encourage everybody to vote for this and move forward with this because we're pretty much about to step across the finish line, and I'd like to see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Brand. Anyone else have any comments on this? Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Alderman Rose. Up until last Wednesday, I was opposed to this project. The fact that I didn't sign the report is an indication of me not being at the meeting. Had I been at the meeting, and I would have signed the report. Prior to last Wednesday, I was opposed to the project, not because of any way that I feel about the one-room schoolhouse. I feel the one-room schoolhouse is a very valuable and a project, and I think it's a good project for the city of Elmhurst and the children of the region. But as Chairman Kennedy mentioned, I just didn't think spending approximately $200,000 of city funds was the best use of that money this year. But I have to hand it to Mayor DeCiani, City Manager Borchard, and especially State Representative Rebeletti, who came through in fairly short order with extra state funds that paid for the balance of this project, and the Historical Foundation too, and I thank you for your efforts. So now that the state is more or less giving us the extra money we need, no city money will be spent on finishing this project in this last phase. So that basically is a budgeted amount that goes back into the budget we're not spending, and because of that, I would have signed the report, and I am now fully in favor of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Alderman Pezza.
Thank you. I think I can give a little more history to the history. I have sat on the Historical Society board for the last 20 years, and I think that tunnel's probably been about 12 to 15 years that we've been looking down toward the renovation of this really unique and fabulous schoolhouse. And back 15, 12 years ago, when we started this project, all of our house walks, which I many times chaired and co-chaired, the money we raised on those house walks was strictly set aside and then donated, I believe it was $67,000, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, toward the renovation also. And it's been a long, as Alderman Kennedy stated, it's been a long ongoing project, but I can tell you that all three of my now adult children got the opportunity to attend the field trip there back when it was up and running. And my daughter, who's 22 years old right now, still says that was the neatest field trip she ever took. And I was able to attend myself, and it really is a wonderful experience, a learning experience. It's like stepping into the show Little House on the Prairie for the day. It's a wonderful learning experience, and I want to thank the foundation for their hard work, thank everyone who was able to secure these funds, and I think it's great that our children will benefit for no fee, but I also look forward to getting a little revenue from surrounding schools and organizations for some income on the property. So I'm excited about it, and hopefully we can maybe sit in one day in a schoolroom ourselves. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Pezza. I just have one comment that I do want to make. When we passed the historic preservation ordinance now over 4 years ago, I made a comment that said preservation is not free. And this is a perfect example. If we are serious about preservation, it does cost money. That was said, of course, in a time when the economy was things were a little bit better at that point. But I think this is, we made a commitment, and the fact that we've been able to leverage really almost the entire amount for this from funds not included in the Elmhurst City budget that's an incredible thing, and I think we should all be very pleased that we're able to fulfill a commitment that we agreed to long ago, and that we do not have to renege on a commitment, and I am very pleased about that. So I thank everyone for their work, and especially Brian Burhager and the folks on that commission. So, any other discussion on this? If not, I would ask the clerk to call the roll.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Gutenkopf. Aye. Peasant.
Aye.
Shea. Aye. Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Hipskin, absent. York.
Aye.
Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Mulliner, absent. Wagner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
Thank you. That motion passes. That report passes. We now move on to item 6, reports and recommendations of appointed and elected officials. Mayor DeCiani is not here, so we do not have his report. I would ask if there are any elected officials who have any reports they wish to make at this point. No. Any reports? Let me ask the chief. Any reports from city staff?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. All right. We'll now move on to item 7, which is ordinances. I would ask the clerk to read the summary recommendation of ordinance O-30-2009.
An ordinance providing for the issuance of not to exceed $4 million general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2009A of the City of Elmhurst, DuPage, and Cook Counties, Illinois, providing for the levy and collection of a direct annual tax for the payment of the principal and of interest on said bonds.
Thank you. I would look to Vice Chair Alderman York to put a motion into play for this ordinance. So moved. Is there a second? Alderman Gutenkopf. Alderman York, comments, summary on this?
Well, we pretty much laid out in our report to the council on July 14th that market conditions prevailing now will allow the city to save some significant funds on interest rates. That was July 14th. I did talk with Mr. Kevin McCann, our representative, this morning to just kind of get a feel on where we are today, as we all know how volatile conditions are. And he assured me that as of today, we'd kind of set a target rate of a 3.5% savings, and as of today, if the bonds were to go out, we'd be in the 4% range. So we're still in very favorable conditions. Currently, we're waiting for, of course, tonight's action, along with some final word from Moody's on our bond ratings. And after we accumulate all the paperwork and get everything put together, it'll be about a week to 2 weeks before we can get this out onto the market. And he feels like we're going to be very successful in obtaining at least the 3.5% floor. I spoke with City Finance Director Gaston last week to kind of get a gauge on what our strategy is here too, because you don't really want to try and time the market too much. So I think the city's strategy is to, if we can obtain some savings in a relatively quick time frame, we're going to do that versus waiting to try and get a little bit better deal. And speaking with Mr. McKenna today, he said that one day you could be at a 4% savings, the next day it could drop to 2.5. So I think that we're in good position, from what I understand, to go ahead and get this thing done and achieve the 3.5% savings that we've laid out for the City Council.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you. I just have a question, and it's something that I picked up on recently. It seems like it might be just a slight inconsistency. It's more of a question, I think, for the city treasurer, just to make sure I understand just a minor point about these bonds. Our report, our recommendation from the 14th, initially mentioned that we would attempt to realize the savings net of all issuance cost. Unfortunately, that phrase didn't end up in our recommendation, and I just want to make sure that it's in the ordinance. And the page that seems to speak to this is page 25. Right in about the middle of the page, it says the report shall demonstrate that the city will realize a minimum net present value savings of 3.5% of the debt service on the eligible bonds being refunded. And I just wanted to make sure that we really are talking about net of all issuance costs, that our savings is above and beyond what it costs us to refinance these bonds.
And your question is to the city treasurer?
Well,
Or to the committee? Is this, can I ask, is this one thing you all discussed in, it was simply
It
an
is something
omission?
we discussed in the committee, perhaps in the preparation of the documents. I want to make sure that we are still following through on this thread of thought.
I think
Alderman York?
in the committee, he was there and he explained to us that it would be, but I understand what you're saying. It's not
specific.
I'm sorry?
It's not specific. It's
not
usually not
specifically-
in the language of
That's
the
correct.
ordinance.
But that direction, I know, has been given by the committee and the council to Kevin McKenna, who is our financial consultant, and I'm sure that commitment will be met.
Right.
And I understand exactly what you're saying.
Because that was a
I'll
part of
pass
the
that on.
report. Right.
Okay.
That was a part of the report, so
Yes.
it sounds like it does not have to be part of
Well,
it.
it was in the body of the report, not specifically mentioned in the recommendation of the report. It's not specifically mentioned in the ordinance, and I wanted to bring it to our attention because it's something we need to be aware of. Should we not realize the savings we're targeting because we failed to take into account what it costs us to refinance the bond, it would affect then our reasoning for refinancing the
Correct.
bonds.
Correct, right. That makes sense. So, thank you, Alderman Gutenkopf. Any other comments or questions on this? Excellent work. I think we always talk about the volatility of the market as if it's a negative, and this is one of those instances which it really will be to our favor, so very good work. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
York.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Shea.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin absent. Nybo.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner absent. Wagner.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
Thank you. That motion, ordinance passes. We now move on to other business. Is there anyone on the council who has other business to bring before the council? No? Announcement.
Oh, okay, sorry.
We'll now move on to announcements. Is there anyone who has an announcement? Alderman York.
I'd just like to make mention of a fundraising event to recognize fetal alcohol syndrome. There's a motorcycle tour starting here in Elmhurst, going to Morris for lunch. It's on Sunday, August 16th, raising funds for this organization. Their website is www.fastride.us, and you can find any information there, but it sounds like a worthwhile tour and a worthwhile cause. So, and that was brought to me by one of my constituents in the 4th Ward.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Alderman Kennedy.
I just want to thank everyone's efforts for the Green Fest on Saturday in Wilder Park.
Exactly.
I was out there in the rain with my kids and
Those two?
debated for a while, and it was a very good time, a lot of good things there. So I want to thank everybody that went out and enjoyed it and everybody that coordinated and got everything out there. got some electronics out of my house that were taking up some space, so, and it looked like a lot of other people were as well. So again, thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Kennedy. In fact, you pulled the very words out of my mouth. I was there a little later, and the recycling truck, especially for computer parts, was just jammed full. They brought a second one in, pickup, in order to do that. So I want to thank the folks, the Cool Cities folks who organized that. It was a great success despite the rain. It was very good. So, any other announcements? All right, before I call for adjournment, I want to thank the city staff. I want to thank my colleagues on the city council for your assistance in helping me run this meeting. Words of the songwriter, I get by with a little help from my friends. I absolutely appreciate it. Can we have a motion for adjournment? Alderman Morley, Alderman Gutenkopf, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.
All right.